Welcome to the show, everyone. This is a new thing we're exploring right now with my dear friend, Robin Lieske. And she's an extraordinary human being, amazing artist, wonderful friend. I've known you for at least 30 years, enjoyed every minute of it. Robin, if I slip and call you Rosie, I hope people understand.
That's all right.
That's been your nickname for a long time. And so I know you as Rosie Lieske, but you are Robin Lieske. You're an extraordinary artist. You've been reading the Urantia book for what, 45, 50 years now?
45 years.
Yeah, me too, 45 years. And I think I met you in the early 90s, and you were deeply involved with Project Palomino. And getting books to Latin American readers, and really bringing to the forefront the fact that so many readers down there just didn't have access to the book or affordable books. And I think it was you who pointed out to us once that there was a group of 100 people reading one Spanish book.
Right.
And it really mobilized us. You're bringing that to light really mobilized us, and we went to work and started the pipeline of light so that we could get books to Chile and Ecuador and Mexico, and in an affordable way. So that was our introduction to work together on Spanish work and getting books to Spanish readers. And then beyond that, I know that at one point you joined the General Council and you got involved with Urantia organizations. But at one point you told me, well, I've been called back to the art department. Yeah. And so you've spent the last 25 years really focused on your art. And so go ahead and fill us in a little bit on your journey and where you are now with your art, your journey with art has brought you, and your work in the art.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. I think some of us are called, when we're Urantia readers, I think some of us are called to try and bring those truths to just regular people, normal people. And that's really what I felt called to do, is to illustrate the angels, to write stories that especially to do with the angels. Because from my study in the book, I felt that they're the closest workers to us, the seraphim. And if we can appreciate our seraphim and begin to be more conscious of how they're working, expand our awareness of them and what their values are, then we have a better chance of actually putting those teachings into practice. And so really I've spent the last 20, 25 years writing stories and doing drawings and paintings. And my modality has been to go to fairs, art fairs and art co-ops, and just really talk to people and sell these little books and plaques and images. And it's interesting because a lot of people that are drawn to angels are drawn more to a magical version of angels and what angels are going to do for them, without really having an idea of how angels work practically. And so it's interesting to see the concept of how angels are mathematical and how they can work with us in circumstances. And there's a real readiness in the public for that type of information, but you just have to see it in the right way.
Right.
So, my focus has really been on attempting to create a consciousness around the Master's gospel, a fatherhood of God and brotherhood of man, through worship and service, and then this consciousness of angelic work.
Wonderful. Years ago, I think it was in the 90s, I know it was, that I came to visit you at your house in Phoenix, and I stayed with you for a few days. And I didn't realize what an accomplished and amazing artist you are. and you started showing me your pieces, which are really etchings, right? What is the medium you use? Because so beautiful and just classic looking.
It's called Intaglio. It is copper plate etching.
Wow.
I don't do it anymore. Now I do painting because I got injuries from doing Intaglio. But what you're doing essentially is drawing into metal. And it's a method that was developed in the 1600s, maybe even a little earlier, during the Renaissance especially. And it's you draw into metal and then you print. And there is something in that technique that gives this beautiful illustrative authority to an image. So it evokes, I liked to do the angelic work that way because it evoked an older era. And even though the images themselves were modern, I like the idea of giving people the feeling that this information has been around for a long time. And I can talk a little bit about how that works. Like the image that you showed before, sis. Can you put up the image of that image? Okay, this is an image that has everything to do with synchronicity. And we know from the UB that that's how the angels work. They're number crunchers. They're very mathematical. So they work in this realm of energy that is in the social, ethical, and physical environment with us. And their medium is circumstance. So here you have angels that are running numbers between them, and we know they work in pairs, running numbers between them. And the numbers are very large at the beginning. And as they wind through the angels, they become less and less. And what it represents is the angels crunching the odds against these two people meeting on the street below. So they're creating synchronicity. But the image itself is evocative more of the Renaissance. And so I like to impart through that medium that, we know this stuff. We're being reminded more than taught about how these angels are working.
So why the angels? I mean, I know you're a student of the Urantia book, and I also know from my own studies of the Urantia book that it's the definitive book about angels. I mean, it says more than any other book that I've ever seen. And I think you made the point that, traditionally they've become these mythical, magical creatures, but the Urantia book gives us this wonderful, practical sense of who they are and how they work and what they do, and how indispensable they are to making things work on this realm. And so, I assume that just from your study of the Urantia book is what made you, was the impetus. But was there anything more specific even than that made you decide?
Yeah, there was. I went through a lot of emotional neglect when I was a kid. And I saw them when I was 4. I had these, or younger, just a child. I don't even remember having language. But what I do remember is in my spirit eye, very clearly seeing these beautiful angels. And they felt very near. They felt like they were watching me and playing with me. And their faces were so exquisitely beautiful and radiating kindness that they left a lasting impression on me. And so as I got older, that went away. I didn't have the ability really to see them. But I always just loved them. And so when I found the Urantia book, one of the things that drew me into it was that it had all this information about angels. And so I've always loved that part of the book. And as an artist, I came to resent how angels are portrayed in art. as always being apart. They're always kind of blissful and peaceful, and you know,
Passive.
if they're guiding us, it's kind of an incidental thing because they're just there. You know, they're not really that engaged. And I just thought, boy, it is time for a change in terms of how we artists are portraying these things.
And so, yeah, it is time for a change. And in comes this powerful art that you've done.
Well, and others.
And others, yeah.
A lot of Urantia artists are really being drawn to do art that is more representative of what we're learning.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit before the show began, about how we both noticed that a lot of Urantian artists, whether they be musicians or artists like you, or, you know, even writers or screenplay writers or filmmakers like David Cantor, are really stepping up to, you know, with their craft, to make these teachings more available. And art really is a universal language, right? So,
well, and art has always, if we look back even to traditional religion, traditional Christianity, art has always been the vehicle for helping people to visualize spiritual teachings. So I think it's a natural evolution in religious art.
yeah.
But we have so many more tools now, like the computer animation work that Carrie Tong is doing. Exquisite, amazing tools that we didn't have before.
Right. And so it's taken it to a whole new level now. We just have to get the word out. And you're doing, you know, this amazing site. And I know that, I mean, I've known you for so long that I know that you have really held up the ideas of worship, study, and service, and how we can actually work with our unseen friends, and how we can become their hands and their hearts and their eyes and their ears and their voice on this world to our brothers and sisters. And what an amazing partnership that is. You know, so in that vein, it's culminated in what, just in the last, I know you've worked on this for many years, but just in the last year, you launched your site. Working.
Yeah, you know how long I talked about it, and
I do.
And I was hoping by talking about it through all those years that somebody else would do it. It was like, wouldn't that be a great idea if there was a public bulletin board for spiritually centered goal setting? And it is born of, it's really a mashup of three different teachings in the Urantia book. But COVID opened the door to actually work on it, because I had a very busy schedule with art classes and painting and all that stuff. And I was starting to feel pulled back into that Working Angels project because I'm getting old. And I thought, boy, you know, time is running out. But I didn't know how in the world I could stop my schedule and do such an extensive project. And then within a few weeks, COVID happened, and I had all the time in the world. and so it was perfect, sis. I just jumped in and wrote out the philosophy, and then worked with Andrea Barnes, who's a wonderful website designer, and put it together. And it is a ready tool. So this is a website. It is a bulletin board, a public bulletin board for the posting of goals that are spiritually derived. And what it is really is a tool to help people work in the action of the gospel, of the Master's gospel. Mm. Because if you take the Master's gospel of the fatherhood of God and the subsequent brotherhood of man, and you put that into action, you're really looking at two specific actions. you're looking at the action of worship. And so meditation, prayer, and worship, that inside action. And then you're working at the external action of service to your brothers and sisters.
Mm.
And so the modality of the board is that you go within, you connect with God, and in it I really try to invite all people, all religions. It's God however you call God.
Mm.
And it's the loving first source and center within. And you connect with that. And from that place, you locate or you intuit your service goal. And when you do that, then you look down into the angelic categories for service. I listed 10, even though there are 12 angelic seraphic groups for planetary service. I listed the 10 that human beings can interact with.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you look in for your category and you click on it, and it will take you to a place where you're invited to state what that goal is, to provide a URL or a donation button, and your contact information. And then a person can go in, peruse the goals, see yours, and if they like it, they can just press your name and contact you directly. So that's what the tool is. And so the modality or the idea behind it is to practice the Master's Gospel. It's to focus, for religionists, to focus on a goals, not creeds approach, and then to innately organize in a way that's going to help the angels when it comes to their job of correlating and synchronizing people and creating, opportunity through circumstance. So that's the idea of it.
And what's the URL?
The URL is workingangels.org.
Workingangels.org.
Yeah.
Great. Go there. I recommend everybody go there and just check it out and see what it's about. And the 10 cores you put up, the angels of industry, the angels of home life, the angels of health. Many people might not realize that there are cores, mighty cores of angels that work very specifically for very specific things. And so you say you've put 10 of those cores up there, and I understand why, because 2 of them really deal with the upper levels of spiritual reality on this planet. So
we can't really help them with ethical blending or their own supervision. It's like, but we sure can enlist with goals that have to do with improving, like fair trade for industry or ethical training of business leaders or mentorship or cross-cultural exchange with the angels of the races or museum science for the angels of the races. I mean, there are so many projects that are deemed secular that really are very productive of spirit value.
Right.
And so just even, you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you post. If you have a favorite project or run into a project that you think speaks to one of those needs, you can go ahead on the board and list that project and the URL for it, and just bring light to it, just further awareness of it.
Great way to network too, right? And find other like minds who might be willing and able to help you with your project and or tell you about their project as well, and see how you can compare notes, and everybody becomes more effective then at that. And I guess it's obvious, but I'd love to hear you, express your feelings about why you think it's important that we even work with the angels, or, you know, why does that matter? Why is that important? And and I'd also like to add on to that, which core do you think are you working with?
Oh boy. I think the reason it's important to work with the angels, it has to do with the cornerstone principle in the Master's Gospel of service. The angels are the daughters of the Infinite Spirit. They operate in the realm of mind, in the social and ethical and moral realm, in the realm of environment. And so if we're to manifest the Master's Gospel and the service part of the Master's Gospel, we really need the angels. It's not that we're just waiting for them to try and wake us up. We need them to practice the Master's Gospel. And they need us because and the book says, these creatures that are born higher, that are, in their case, they were projected higher than us, don't necessarily have the capability to operate in the lower realms of life. We have that. We have the ability to act for them in ways that they can't. So there is a real mutual need when it comes to our relationship with the angels. And the other part of it is that we know from the book that our guardian angels will end up being our oldest friends, that they are the ones. There will be a real continuity in our relationship with our guardians. They're the ones who are going to be bringing us from this level all the way to paradise. They may end up continuing with us past that. And so we're talking about an ages-long relationship and friendship. And what better way to start that friendship at its most beginning level than by reciprocity? It's like, let's show them that we are interested in that friendship and being reciprocal with them in attaining their goals. And so to me, it's very important to reach up and move toward reciprocity.
Right. And admit to yourself, even just ponder the reality, the spirit reality. I guess you had an experience as a child of their reality. And I though I didn't see them, I felt them. I always felt them. And I never felt alone. And like you and I have so many interesting shared experiences as religious children, as spiritual children, children who were deeply touched by spirit and deeply, connected to spirit. And in fact, I remember you telling me as a child, you told your mom you wanted to be a nun. And she said, you can't be a nun. You have to be Catholic to be a nun.
Right.
I had the exact same experience as a child. I had the exact same experience. I told my mom I wanted to be a nun, and she told me, you can't be a nun.
Yeah.
And we both laughed because we were crestfallen, right? Because, I can't.
I asked my mom, I think I told you this, I asked my mom what nun meant. And she said, oh, none of this and none of that.
None of this and none of that.
Yeah, she did not want a nun for a daughter.
Yeah. I don't think my mom did either. But it is what it is, and you are who you are. And I've always been so attracted to the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
And always felt so connected to it. And God has long been my best friend. And and when I found the Urantia book, I found those realities that I already so intimately knew.
Right.
But no one had ever explained those realities to me in that way. And so
I feel that you became to me because of prayer. I've been I'd really rejected the church at 14 because of an experience with the catechism. The catechism was such a letdown. And I just thought, no, this isn't it. And then along pathway through study that pertained to world religions, a lot of them were also a letdown. And I remember praying, by then I didn't know about God, but I made this desperate prayer to whoever is out there, I need intelligent information. I can't find you through this.
Right.
And then 3 weeks later, the Urantia book came into my life. And it was like, boy, you got to watch what you pray for. That was definitely intelligent information.
That's something else we have in common. I told him when I was 16, in no uncertain terms, you may be just the way they say you are. And if you are, I'm sorry, but I can't worship you. And then I told him, but somehow I don't think you are that way. But you're going to have to reveal yourself to me, because I'm not getting involved with any more religions. And I couldn't have dreamed that a real revelation of God would fall into my hands.
Yes, Spirit just dropped a book on your head. Just, okay, boom.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden, you know about, their work and their actions. And so, I've given a lot of thought to that. In fact, I want to go on your site and I want to do a project. I've got writer's block. I don't know which group I really want to work with at this point in my life.
You can put it on several different groups.
Okay.
It's like, you can, if a project pertains to, because they do interlap, a project can pertain to progress, it can pertain to the future, and you can put it on several different categories.
Several different boards. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
The Angels of Progress, I've always been so attracted to them because it's obvious to me that we have to make some progress on this planet, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy, but, so what group have you been so most inspired by?
Oh, boy. I'm trying to think. I don't, I haven't really thought of it that way. I think I've been trying so hard to reach in and figure out how these different groups work, what their fields of action might be, because they really don't tell us a lot in the Urantia book. They give us these little phrases, but if you think about them and think about how interactive that must be, it really opens your mind. It's like, wow, if human beings were seriously to align along in these fields of action and with goals instead of ideational creedal formation, it would be so dynamic in this world. Imagine. And the cool thing about putting a goal out there is that you don't know who you're going to attract that has the same goal. They may think so differently than you do. They may have a different orientation, a different race, a different religion. You don't know. You're not going on that basis of pre-selecting somebody you're going to work with. In this case, the angels are going to start putting you together with people that may be radically different from you, but they may share the same goal. And they may bring something to that project that could not happen if they were like you. Because I think one thing that we really miss as human beings is an appreciation of what diversity can actually mean in a group. Just how effective it can be. So that's another reason to laud the Goals Not Creeds approach.
Yeah, so I wanted to actually share that quote, and I don't know if you had it
I have it,
already.
yeah.
You do? Why don't you go ahead and read that one, because that is such a pivotal quote, and it's from such a pivotal part of the book as
It
well.
is. It's from paper 99, The Social Problems in Religion, section 5. It says, someday religionists will get together and actually effect cooperation on the basis of unity of ideals and purposes, rather than attempting to do so on the basis of psychological opinions and theological beliefs. Goals, rather than creeds, should unify religionists. Since true religion is a matter of personal spiritual experience, it is inevitable that each individual religionist must have his own and personal interpretation of the realization of that spiritual experience. Let the term faith stand for the individual's relation to God, rather than for the creedal formation of what some group of mortals have been able to agree upon as a common religious attitude. Have you faith? Then have it to yourself. Yeah.
Goals, not creeds.
Goals, not creeds.
Yeah.
And I was one thing that really came to me says through all these years of study. It's in this section when the master is talking at Pela, paper 170, section 4, paragraph 8. And he talks about the 5 cardinal features of the gospel. And the most surprising one to me when I first read it was the preeminence of the individual.
Mm.
And what it does, that teaching, the preeminence of the individual, okay, in the realization of the gospel, it really creates a paradigm shift. Because I think as religionists, what we have always thought is that God works through us as groups, so that if we find the perfect alignment with a group in terms of their creedal understanding of God, then that's the group we belong in. And that's the group we're really going to be effective in. But if we look at this cardinal principle of the preeminence of the individual, it's a switch, because what we see when we really look into that is that the most direct line to God for any of us is within. It's within us as individuals. And so our way of bringing God into the collective is by alignment with the Father inside, and then through that, putting it out there. What is it that we think that we should be doing, not believing? Mm-hmm. So there's that one. And then he goes on to the importance of free will, which brings up will alignment through value recognition, rather than through trying to muddily interpret the situations around us. So we have will alignment through a recognition of what is true, what is beautiful, and what is good, what is love in as we see it. And then fellowship with God, the importance of worship and friendliness with God, a desire for that contact. And
a
then
relationship with God.
Yeah. And then the fourth one, loving service to brothers and sisters. Okay, the cardinal cornerstone principle of the gospel. And in that service, he goes on to say that all service is sacred. It's not just our religious work. I think as religionists, we always tend to think of our service to God as being more in the realm of religion, and that is one field of it. But if the master says that if we're aligned with the Father, that any service that we do is sacred. So, sweeping the stairs or taking care of our babies, or if we work in a hospital, or if we work as teachers, or any service that we do is sacred if it's done in the spirit of the gospel. And then the last cardinal principle of the gospel is the transcendency of the spiritual over the material. And to me, that speaks of faith. That speaks of this faith that as we move into the world from a spiritual center and into service from that place, that we will see the transcendency of the spiritual over the material. And it will be a path toward the manifestation or realization of the kingdom on earth. So, that's where that comes from.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for reminding me of that section. I love that. And it makes me think of another project you've been working on, and we were chatting about that a little bit before we went on the air, and that was that you said suddenly, you peeked out. You want to share that story because you kind of retreated a bit, you said, and the next time you peeked out to see what was going on in the realm of service, all of a sudden 4 other compatriots to create a team.
It happened so fast. I worked on the site all year, and frankly, I was exhausted by December. And Andrew was like, "Oh, let's get this out," and I'm like, no, I want to die. So I hid for a month or 6 weeks or something. And then when I poked my head out and I thought, okay, now I'm ready to put out this Goals Not Creeds approach, this gathering of 4 other people that were fascinated and also had projects for Goals Not Creeds approaches gathered. And it happened so fast, I can't even remember how it happened. So it was a green light from Spirit. It's like, okay, we want you guys to really work on this. And so the project, I've been continuing to work on this, and I will create links in their project for this approach. But the project with those guys has been philosophy crunching, because what we all know as Urantia readers is that we have to create a lot of tools for lay people and for people that will never pick up such a complex book, to bring these wonderful gems to them, and so that they can help their children in their religious training. So their children can end up with teachings that they can use through their whole lives and not have to leave when they're 13 or 14, when they come into a greater understanding of themselves.
And so that is centered around the gospel project that's on Facebook and Robert Sarmast. And
yes.
Yeah, what's that called again?
It's called the Invisible Brotherhood.
The Invisible Brotherhood, okay.
And but it is really, sis, to create a restatement of the Master's gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those of us that work in religion realize just how confusing the current gospel is to a lot of people. It turns a lot of thinking modern people off, because there's a lot of chaff with the wheat. Mm-hmm. And if we can manage to bring out that little kernel of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man and go, this is what he meant. This is what he really wanted. And what he wants is for us to reach within and to serve each other. It just opens the door. I have found the gospel so easy to share with modern thinkers. So that is the project.
Right. And that's Robert Sarmast and Don Beauchamp and yourself. And who else? You said 5 people.
I can never pronounce Eric's last name. He is a delightful French Canadian. Eric Rahar. Like I don't know his name. And then there's Eddie Gonzalez.
Okay.
Yeah, Gonzalez. And so the cool thing is, in the group, there are 4 languages. So we've got English, Spanish, French, and Farsi.
But four powerhouses, actually, 5 powerhouses of individuals that have been individually doing things all their lives and now coming together in this powerful way. It's really pretty cool that happened that way.
Yeah.
And again, that to me, as I understand it, that's angel work. That's how the angels work.
Right.
They bring you together with other individuals of like mind to make a team of you so that you can get something specific done. And the Urantia book actually talks about that group of angels as well, the social architects.
Right.
And, they have to be instrumental for every other organization of angels on the planet. So all of these other cores have to depend and rely upon them, I think, to help coalesce those relationships so that, those working groups can actually get something done.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't we want to progress? Why wouldn't we want to get better at this? We're driven that way. It's hardwired in us to be better, to become better people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's that reach. They do need us to reach down. And Spirit wants to flow like a river down and descend into all the places that it possibly can. And you can see from the way that the Celestials write that they have a very hard time connecting with our level of mind. They kind of complain about it a lot. They're like, oh, it's so hard. So they do need us to work hard to simplify, to illustrate, to dramatize, to put things to music, and to do our work to bring the truth more into the human.
Right, to make it accessible more understandable, more approachable, more real. I find myself now, the hard part is just even broaching the topic or the subject of religion or God or spirit. Or, you wrote something just not long ago on Facebook that, you're such a good writer, and I appreciate your writing as much as your art.
Thanks.
And the books you've written, of late, about, I want to say Rapunzel, but it's called An Idiot's Tale.
Right.
And you've written some books for children, and Eve's Tarot was a great one. You write in such a colorful way, in such a descriptive way, and I really love that. And what you were writing about on this particular post was about the difficulty of not just being a deeply spiritual person and trying to have a conversation with other people about your own spirituality. But I think in a sense, your frustration came out and you said, can't I just say God? Can't I just express what's in my heart without offending you, and making you feel put off, as a hearer? Can't you just open your heart a little bit to the way that I express myself, and allow me to have that so that I can share what I know as well, without always having to edit for fear of being misunderstood or
and dance around. You have to put all these words to, Spirit, oh, Spirit says this, or,
the universe,
all that is,
yeah,
and the Tao, and all this stuff. And it's just like, something, I just basically had a hissy fit with my friends. It's like, my word is God. I like God. God. There. I hope I really offended you. They didn't even know I was having a problem with it. And but my feeling about the word God and our work in bringing UB teachings down is that we need to use the word God so that deeper meanings can get assigned to that word, so that that word can be reformed in people's thinking. And just because there are primitive concepts of God that are basically on their way out, frankly, doesn't mean that we have to discard that word. We can reframe it.
Well, you kind of inoculate language to the point that you make it meaningless. After a while, it doesn't have any meaning anymore, you know, and it makes me sad too that, you know, I always remember, well, before he died, Wayne Dyer did a lot of talks, and of course he was a celebrated author, and he wrote a lot of books, and actually the Urantia book, he admitted in a lecture, a public lecture, that it was one of his favorite books.
Oh, wow!
And you can always, you know, always somebody in the audience would go down and ask him, and you say, you know, a lot of the stuff you say sounds like the Urantia book, you know. But I remember PBS had a special on him, and he was doing one of his great talks, and the power of intention, I think it was. And one of the things he said in this talk was, he said, you know, I go all over the world and I lecture all over the world, and what I've noticed lately is that people are just so easy to offend. They're so easily offended. And then right in the moment he said that, they panned across the audience, and it was hysterical because you could see that by saying that he had offended about he had offended about half the audience.
That's like that Facebook meme, you know, the world is full of wonderful people waiting to be offended. But, you know, when you think of it, that's part of the dilemma that we're in by being in a creedally based system right now. We're based in a system, and this, you can really see it in every arena of modern life, where there's this concept that we should agree with each other.
Right.
And when we don't agree with each other, there's something deeply wrong with the other person.
My mom used to quote an old Quaker saying, "Everyone's wrong but thee and me, and sometimes I wonder about thee." But yeah, it's, you know, and then the beauty is in the diversity. And the Urantia book really holds that up, doesn't it? It really holds up the fact that you were touching on it with your, you know, principles of the gospel, the 5 different, you know, items. And what were they called? What did Jesus call them? The
cardinal features of the gospel.
Cardinal features. Wow. That's that gives a real import to those 5 things. And the preeminence of the individual, you know, the fact that each one of us, and he says later on in his discourses on religion, we'll never all be able to see alike.
Right.
How is that? Would that ever be possible?
Yeah, I have friends that are, I have a lot of hippie friends, surprisingly enough. And, but I have friends that want a very devotional life. Their interpretation of spirit is that they're in a devotional life surrounded by people that think just like they do.
Mm-hmm.
And if those people think just like they do, that's their doorway into a more spiritual life. And the Master's gospel just blows a big hole in that. It's like, no. Your way into a spiritual life is really through yourself, your contact, your connection with the Heavenly Father. And you don't worry so much about who's around you. You kind of let him be a little more in charge of that stuff. You don't try and manage it, figure it out. Your goal is to connect with him and then serve your brother as he's going to appear in your environment. And
let everything come from that inner place. Come like a wellspring. Just bubble up and come from that deep inner place.
Yeah.
And it's the way you touch the world then.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also the way you encounter those rugged hills of moral choosing.
Right.
That enable the angels to help us with our circle growth.
Our attainment, our spiritual attainment, essentially. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and self-mastery is the goal, right? And if you get that right on the inside, then everything else on the outside starts to fall in place. You know, you can't control the outer world, but you can control the inner one, you know, and how you respond to it, to the outer world, is dictated by what goes on in the inner life. And that gives you peace. And then you really can maybe be of help to the angels. I'll share a little story with you. I was praying to them one day and I was thinking about them. This was, late 80s. I was telling them, driving along, because many of my conversations with the spiritual realm happen while my hands are engaged.
Right.
Doing something, that I don't have to think terribly hard about. You kind of go on autopilot a little bit. Not that it's unsafe, because I have found that you go to a super conscious place.
Yeah.
And I was talking to them and I was thinking about the reserve corps of destiny and humans that really work with them in earnest. They really work with them in earnest. And I thought, I don't know what I could do for you. I'm having this conversation with them. I think, I'm not sure what I can do. What do I have to give you that would be of value to you? And then I thought, oh, I know. I know what I can do. I'm pretty good at making people feel better when they're sad. If you know anybody that's sad, send them to me. And I'll do my best to make them feel better. And the minute I said that, then I felt that, the book talks about that down grasp. I felt that down grasp of, okay, but just remember, you said it.
You asked for it.
You said it.
And they have a way of holding your feet to the fire. It's like I had that experience with the Latin American work. I had given a paper. I was young and on fire and full of myself, and I'd given a paper on the Supreme Being and how to actualize the Supreme Being in your life, right? And then I was in my bedroom and I was thinking, well, how am I going to actualize the Supreme Being in my life? I was like, how am I going to do that? That seems like a hard thing to do. And I went into meditation about it. And there was a map that rolled out of the Americas. And there were no boundaries in this map at all. No countries. There were just houses and churches. And there were little seeds of light that would travel from one to the other and then light up that little house or that church, from north to south and from south to west. And there was an invitation on the inside that said, do you want to be part of that? Do you want to be part of that? That's how you can help. And I thought, boy, that looks like it might be hard. But I really thought about it and I said, yeah, okay, I want to be part of that. And so then for the next 10 years, the angels kept my feet to the fire. I was learning Spanish. I was working with all these groups from all over the Americas. I felt like I was getting trained for Project Palomita. And every time I would sort of wander off that path, there would be a very definitive nudge back to it. I'd meet somebody or, something became imperative that had to do with that particular thing. And I think that's how we learn to respect and appreciate the reality of those angels, because they take you seriously.
Oh, they do. They have to.
Yeah.
And doesn't it make perfect sense that they would? I mean, I wonder how many humans purposefully, with intention, say to them, I want to help. Let me help. What can I do? Show me the way. I mean, once you do that, because there are 7 billion people on this planet, and they are one overworked group of beings.
Right.
The midwayers, the angels, the planetary, seraphic government, they've got their work cut out for them. So every human that raises their hand and says with all sincerity, let me help, I want to do something for you, they're going to take them up on that.
Yeah, and they work fast. I mean, the thing about that angelic energy is that, man, they work fast. And sometimes you have to tell. I had to tell them to go. You got to go slower. I'm a human. I'm a little hairy beast. I need downtime. I don't know what an angel version of downtime is, but I think it's to go do something harder. It's like, oh,
try harder, huh?
Yeah, they move quickly, and we have to remember that since our planet, having suffered default, that those groups, the work that has fallen on those groups is much heavier than it would have been otherwise. So on this planet, they're really full tilt boogie all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So if you raise your hand, they're going to take you up on it. But the work and the effort is so rewarding. I mean, the very next day after I said that prayer, I had a video store, and a Vietnam vet came in my store, and he was one broken human being. And it started a 5-year intense friendship with this fellow to make him, to pull him out of the depths of despair. And I gave it my all, and I knew it. They were like, okay, here you go. Here's somebody that needs to be cheered up.
Yeah.
And I love that man. He's a good man. And he lost a lot in Vietnam. But, I listened. I sat patiently and listened, and he poured his heart out to me. And really, sometimes that's all you need to do is just listen.
So I'm curious, how much has that factored into your outreach work? How many times have you ended up sharing the UB by reaching into somebody whose heart was really sad or confused?
Right. And there is no greater feeling on earth than to actually have had a breakthrough with somebody, broke through. Some light broke through, and they actually did feel better because of association with you, or your art, or your project, or your effort, or whatever it was, your music, whatever it was, it touched their heart. That's as good as it gets, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets.
As good as it gets.
Well, what a joy to talk to you, my friend. Oh, I love you so deeply.
All these years, when this planet is in the skids, which it is, often you and I connect, and it's like, look.
We can always laugh. We can always find something to laugh about. And it's always a treasure, my dear friend Rosie. And I misspoke. I called it Palomino. It's Palomino, right? Your project.
Palomita.
Palomita.
Palomita. It was Project Little Dove. And I chose that symbol. I chose the descending dove, the paraclete, because it was about bringing the message of the revelation down to South America.
Yeah.
Yeah. And boy, have they taken off.
They've taken off. Yeah. God bless them.
Yeah, they can be our teachers, really.
Yeah, I know. So open-hearted.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, my dear friend. Love you so much. It was such a pleasure to interview you and your projects, and the Angel Project and the Gospel Project. You keep going, girl.
You too.
Okay.
I love you, sis.
I love you.
Love you.
Yeah. Goodbye.